Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Chuck. My name is Chuck Guglielmo. It is a weekly interview show where we talk with interesting people around the community, and we are taping the show on Monday, April the 30th. And today my guest is the athletic director at Edgewood High School, also the assistant principal at Braden, Steve Kray. Steve, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Got an opportunity to talk to Steve briefly at the ACBF in an interview, and I found you to be a high energy type guy.
All right, sounds good.
Very high energy. I want to talk about a lot of things, but let's start with the ACBF.
Okay.
And you're one of the board of directors.
Yes.
Also newly elected, how could I forget, into the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
The ACBF, this was their 16th event. Mm-hmm. And how have you seen it blossom throughout the years? Because you've been on there most of those years.
I've been on for the last 3 years, really as a fundraising chairman, kind of running a few golf outing events for them, trying to raise some money so we can hand out more scholarships to our local athletes, and that's kind of my part of the organization. But I mean, as far as it blossoming, I think you saw what the New Leaf Event Center brought to the table.
What a beautiful venue.
Absolutely, and it was a great event, and I think you're going to see a lot of more events that are, with that ACBF type of stamp on it, going to be outstanding there at that facility.
Well, I've been to all 16, and of course, Nick Gairochi and Mike Joslin were the co-founders way back in 2003. I remember being with them at the broadcast table. We were at a halftime game, and they were brainstorming through something like that. And I asked Nick how he has seen it blossom. He said he never thought it would be where it is today.
Oh, I mean, and both of those guys are outstanding and want none of the credit for any of it.
Yeah, they stay back now.
They stay back, and they've always stayed back, but they owe all the credit. We owe all the credit to them. I mean, it was an honor to be inducted, for sure. And you look at some of the great names that have been in the county that are a part of that group, it's a very humbling experience. And you don't really know how humbling it is until you get in front of those people and you have to talk a little bit. Mm-hmm. It was, outstanding. But for what those guys do for the county and other kids and how they recognize student athletes, it's outstanding.
No, well, you did a great job yourself in the speech that you gave. You were outstanding as well. And like you said, Mike and Nick stepped back, but they're in good hands as Brad Ellis does a tremendous job as president of that event.
Absolutely. Coach Brad, I think, does an outstanding job being the host of that little event with him and David Miller being on the mics, and they do a great job. And, classy group of guys is the best way I could put it, and gals. I mean, this is a great group of people that are, very motivated to do things for the kids, and that's what those organizations are all about.
Mm-hmm. Before we get into the sports that we're going to talk about, let's talk about your assistant principal's job at Braden. How long have you been the assistant principal?
Well, I've been there officially for about 7 years. Off and on, I did a teacher on a special assignment for a few years. Really, I've always helped out with the discipline side of things. That's kind of what my role is down there. In the last few years, it's been a pseudo athletic administrator half day, assistant principal half day at the middle school. Kind of do what's fit there at the middle school. So it's worked out. It's worked out well. I get a chance to see my middle school kids and know who they are when they come to the high school, and it's been a good fit so far.
So Braden houses 6th, 7th, and 8th graders?
We are a middle school, yeah. So it's 6th, 7th, and 8th.
6th, 7th, and 8th.
Yeah, got about 450 approximately students.
Oh, that's a good amount of students. At that age level, they're kind of like in transition from elementary to high school. Do you find that a challenging dealing with those aged kids?
Absolutely. I think it's a challenge, but it's also, you have kids that are trying to find themselves. You have kids that are trying to find their own little niche in the world and what they want to do. So it's challenging and unique all at the same time. But those kids need people to model for them and role model them, and that's the kind of the key of what our job is. You try to. Sometimes you only see the kids that are in trouble. That's the hard part about the assistant principal's job. So that's my side of this that's kind of fun, is because I have an opportunity to see kids outside of the classroom with the athletic side and kind of can bond some relationships with some of those things with those kids.
Mm-hmm. So very good. Assistant principal Steve Kray, my guest here at Around the Town with Chuck, assistant principal at Braden, and he's also the athletic director at Edgewood. And you've been the athletic director how long?
This is my 7th year.
Taking over for?
Dave Meloragno.
Dave Meloragno, yes. How could I forget?
Yep.
Good man, Dave Meloragno.
He is, my
Big
godfather.
shoes to fill, but you're doing it well.
Yes.
He's your godfather.
He is. He's sitting in Florida right now in a chair probably somewhere. He doesn't come home till about, right about now, I guess, first couple weeks of May. So he's probably enjoying himself on his condo down in Florida right now, but well deserved. He, you know,
he's
I had him
great
as a
guy.
high school teacher. You know, I had him as a baseball coach growing up when I was little. So it's been fun to kind of transition and take over the helm that he had.
Dave spent many years at Edgewood. How many years? Do you know?
He spent most of his career between Edgewood and St. John. So, I mean, he spent a lot of his years at Edgewood. I'm not sure the exact years there, but he was the athletic director there for, I believe, close to 10 years. So he took over for Al Goodwin, who was also a marquee man in this whole organization. So I'm following a pretty good bloodline of people that I got some big shoes to fill.
Did not know Dave was also at St. John's School.
Yeah, he did some work there too.
Did not know that. Well, let's run through the sports programs at Edgewood. We'll try to get them in order here. We'll start for the
Okay.
fall. Let's start, I think golf is probably the first thing. Your boys and girls golf team. What I'd like you to do is recognize the coaches for those sports and
Okay.
how they did for the year.
Yeah, I mean, so we had, you know, our boys golf team is our head coach is Tim Green, who's also the camp advisor of Calvary Camp down here in Conneaut. You know, they had an outstanding young group of guys. They're coming back next year with, you know, locked and loaded, ready to go. Dylan Fitchett's an outstanding young golfer. He's winning, you know, junior tour championships right now over the summer and, you know, getting things going. So, you know, Tim's son Ryan, also a very young guy. He's going to be a junior next year who's got some talent. Who him and Dylan kind of hand in hand are the 1 and 2 golfers in that group, and it's kind of fun to watch them play. Our girls golf coach is Scott Keller. He's a work teacher actually he's a guidance counselor at Pymatumee Valley. You know, Scott has a very young group of golfers who are learning the game, and they got better as the year went on, and it's kind of fun to watch them play as well. Golf's one of those games where, you know, the more you play, the better you get, and, you know, in our time and age right now, the numbers of those golf kids are kind of low. So we're starting to get some numbers out for the programs, and those numbers are starting to grow.
Mm-hmm. So golf is becoming a little bit more popular.
It is. I would say it's a little more popular than it was.
Good. Cross country.
Cross country. Well, that's been our earmark program for the last couple years. I mean, we have you know, our girls program's on a streak right now, going to state. You know, we have outstanding coaches. You know, Steve Hill's been there for a number of years. We won't make Steve Hill feel too old, but Mr. Hill was one of my teachers. He was my senior government teacher in high school, and now one of my very good friends. And, you know, he pushes the girls, no doubt about it. And, you know, they're looking for another run next year to make to that state meet again as we return everybody but one of our seniors. So we're excited about that. And our boys' numbers are coming back. We graduate a pretty good runner in Paul Burnell, who was our senior leader. So we'll have to, you know, some shoes to fill, but cross country is definitely a fun thing for us to watch. I hope to be watching them meet in like November 4th, because that means we'll be back at state again.
There you go. And like you said, girls cross country in particular has been very strong for years there.
Absolutely.
At Edgewood. What about girls tennis?
Girls tennis, same thing. I would say girls and boys tennis. We'll put those two together. I know one's in the fall, one's in the spring. You know, we have progression of both of those programs in numbers. You know, the numbers are improving. Tennis is one of those games as well. You got to spend a lot of time in the off season, and we have kids that are, you know, starting to put some time in the off season and get some private lessons, and that kind of stuff helps. And you know, those numbers are increasing. As the numbers increase, competition increases, and, you know, our teams are getting better. So we're excited about that. Our girls and boys tennis coach is Renee Matson. She's our head coach, and she's also a substitute teacher in our building. She's actually a permanent sub right now for one of our teachers.
I like to recognize some of these sports because they don't get the recognition.
Oh, for sure.
I'm one of the guilty ones. I'm a football, basketball, baseball type of person too.
Yeah.
Football.
Football. We're in a little bit of a transition. You know, we had Coach Ken Parise was our head coach for the last 3 years. We're going through a little bit of a transition. We brought in a new guy. His name's John Butchko. He's an offensive coordinator down at Sandy Valley. So we're very excited about Coach Butch coming in, and we're excited about his staff. He's bringing some young guys on staff that are motivated. I will tell you that this is probably the best turnout in a while we've had in our weight room. So the kids are excited to lift. The kids are excited to kind of get in the weight room and push it a little bit. And, you know, we have hopefully some good things on the horizon in our football program, because that is, you know, that Friday Night Lights thing is what everybody kind of looks forward to. And it's, you know, we're hoping to, you know, be a little more competitive and do the best we possibly can.
Mm-hmm. How about on the soccer fields?
Soccer's a growing sport in our area for sure.
Yeah, it is.
You know, we have you know, our boys coach Rick Carlson has put in a ton of time with our boys program the last couple years. He was an assistant for a couple years, took over the job. He's done an outstanding job at that program, getting us ready for competition. I think us joining the Chagrin Valley Conference in a couple years is going to be a big help for us. We're playing in a league right now that's pretty difficult when you're playing the Lakeviews, the Polands of the world, and they're state ranked in most sports, and it's hard for our kids to compete on that level every single night. You can play that type of competition, but every single night makes it a little bit difficult. But our girls program, same thing. Our numbers are high. Tim Pike, current teacher in our building, teaches computer science or computers technology. He is our girls coach. This will be his second year. Outstanding relationship with kids. Has daughters, so knows what it's like to coach girls. And our numbers are going there, and he's turning the corner in the program as well, and it's fun to watch. We play those games now at our stadium under the lights, so it gives those kids an opportunity to really shine on a Tuesday or Thursday night.
Mm-hmm. You have one of the best coaches around, of course, in the wrestling program in the Stofers, Greg, and I think it's Gregory.
It's Gregory.
Greg and Gregory,
longtime
coach for Edgewood. Talk a little bit about him and the sport.
Yeah, I mean, this is we have a very solid structure in our wrestling program. I mean, it's very nice having teachers in the building that can help you throughout the day if you have issues with kids or things you need to get done. But I mean, I think Stove's reputation speaks for himself. Stove is a class man who kids look up to and respect, and because of that, you get some answers and some results on the wrestling mat. Gregory is a spitting image of him as a young guy. I mean, he's his dad. There's no doubt about it. Got that fiery instinct, and it's been fun to help Gregory grow up as a coach a little bit. He's a young guy, and I always have to tell him that in the back of his head that hey, you're still a young guy, and we're gonna help you through this. But he's come leaps and bounds over the last 3-4 years about his development as a coach, and we're excited about the future.
Like most schools around the area, Steve, do you find wrestling a pretty tough draw for fans to come to watch?
I will say that we host usually 2 or 3 events a year, and it's pretty highly attended. I mean, we get
great,
and
great.
It's usually
the dual meets. You mean?
Yeah, the dual meets, and we've been doing a few tries just to try to get our middle school involved as well. So we'll run the middle school on one mat and the high school on the other, just to kind of get our attendance up. But when you're wrestling local people, just like if you're playing local people and everything else, attendance is up. I mean, we wrestle Conneaut and PV. We wrestle in front of a pretty packed house. So I mean, it's about getting those local people together, and our attendance definitely goes up.
Mm-hmm. The basketball program, the girls and the boys. I know the boys are on quite a run right now. Mm-hmm. And speaking of the boys, on one of our next shows on Around the Town with Chuck, we will have the most valuable player, Hayden Konecki, with us. But talk a little bit about him, the program itself, and how that's going along with the girls' basketball.
Well, I think that, our boys' program kind of speaks for itself right now. Coach Bowler puts in a ton of time with those kids. We met last week. He's already got his summer schedule planned. Kids are already starting to have some open gyms and shoot-arounds. And, I mean, he puts in a great deal of time with the kids and gives them the most opportunities to get better. And I think that's what it is. We're working right now to share those kids with our other sport programs, and he's been very open to doing that, and that's also important for a school our size. So we're excited. Hayden's a pretty special kid. I mean, he's a special player, special kid, and there's other kids in that junior class that are just right along with him that are as special. And I think we're in for a pretty good run next year again. I think these guys have a chance to continue to turn heads. We won 21 games this year. I think that's definitely a shot again next year. We just got to continue to make sure we stay healthy and continue to play hard. And we got some shoes to fill with the loss of Ty. Ty Rude, one of our seniors, who's, it's hard to lose a 6'6" kid who's pretty athletic and can lead the team and pass the basketball and rebound. We got some shoes to fill, but I think some of our younger guys are ready to do that.
Well, you lost a big guy last year, and you did pretty well.
We did, yeah. Yes, we did. And actually, we've had an opportunity to see Marcus a couple times this year. John took the boys up to watch him play when he played Lake Erie, so that was fun. The entire boys team went up and watched Lake Erie versus Malone, so that was kind of fun for our kids to see Marcus on that stage. But also kind of to show them that, hey, this is an attainable thing for you too. You guys can, push yourself and possibly play some college basketball.
You got to think, if Marcus Ernst was on this team, you're beating the Lions in that tournament game.
Yeah,
you got to think that.
Yeah. I'm not sure. We definitely had our shots this year. I think we we didn't play real good under the big lights, but I think that, it was a learning thing for some of these guys. They had to really learn under those types of pressures, and Marcus's leadership probably would have helped a little bit, but I think these guys are young and motivated enough that I think they're going to learn from that and get better for this year. Our girls basketball program kind of in a transition right now. Paul Stoffen has been our head coach for the last 3 years. Paul has stepped down, so we're actually in the process of hiring a girls coach. I'm actually doing interviews in about an hour. So we got a busy night planned for tonight, but our goal is to find a guy who wants to put the same kind of time in that Coach Bowler does, and work with our girls in the summer, and continue to grow the program from the elementary ages all the way up to the high school.
You mentioned Paul Stoffen, also one-time basketball referee.
Yep, actually.
He's been around quite a while, too, with a lot of schools.
Mr. Stoffen was a referee when I was in high school.
I was going to ask you about that.
Games.
Did he tee you up at all?
He did not, actually. But I always joke with him. I'm like, Paul, you weren't very good. But no, I mean, he's a great guy, a friend of mine. I mean, this basketball, he took it over when I was the girls coach there. I did it for a couple years, and I have a very young family. And I needed to do some things with my kids and coach my son and daughter and kind of spend some time with my wife. So we're kind of doing that to the best of our ability right now, even though our lives, one's going one way, we're going this way. But, we're trying to do the best we can.
One of your toughest jobs, Steve, and I ask all the ADs that I have on the show, is when you get these games canceled, especially these spring sports. But basketball, we had a lot of cancellations too. Is it where if you get a canceled game, is there a rule that says you're supposed to play the next day that both teams are available?
Well, it just depends on your league rules. So everybody's league rules are different.
Okay, that must be a District 10 rule.
Yeah, so at Edgewood, our All-American rules are we leave Wednesdays open. So if you lose a game on Monday or Tuesday because of weather, you're supposed to play it that first Wednesday that you can. But the problem we have is right now there's so many games that are backed up. We're playing games to Memorial Day. I mean, there's nothing we can do. We got our brackets today for OHSA sectionals, and I think I'm playing 5 games after the sectional date for the first time in a long time.
Wow.
It doesn't help when you're graduating on May 23rd. You could probably possibly play a baseball game on May 24th after you graduated. So it's going to be different, and I think that there's some talk in OHSA of moving the season back even farther a week back because of weather.
The baseball season?
Yeah, just in general because of the, we dealt with snow until...
Move it to September.
Yesterday. Yeah, I know.
I think I mentioned that to you at the ACB. Yeah. Let's see, spring sports. What else we got? Track and field.
Track and field is another one of our staples, I guess I would say. Actually, we're coming over here to Conneaut tomorrow for a non-conference meet here, and actually Conneaut High School and Joel Taylor. I got to send a huge thank you out to because they allowing us. We don't have a home track right now, so Joel's allowing us to use this home meet tomorrow as our senior night and get a chance to honor our kids. So, Joel, if you're watching, thank you. So, our track and field team, every year we're sending some kids to state in different events. We got a real good shot putter in Darian Gustafson on our girls' side. She'll hopefully make it to state this year. She's been our district champion. She's been, made it to out of regional. So, we have individual people that really excel, but I think our 2 coaches, and Beth Simpson and Jim Sanchez, are players, coaches, and the kids would like to, perform for them. And it's kind of what it's all about. If you get a guy or a young woman who's very motivated and shows that they care about you, then you'll put forth the effort. And I think we have that in our younger staff there for track.
I think I forgot a sport back in the fall here. Volleyball.
Volleyball, another legend in our staff, Dave Fowler. Dave Fowler's been at Edgewood for, once again, not to make Mr. Fowler feel old, but he was my high school chemistry teacher. But Dave's been around, over 25 years, coaching the sport over probably 30 years. As his time at St. John. But, once again, a player's coach who the girls, really he bonds with. They know how to take him. He knows how to take them and gets the most out of his players. And I think that is the vital part of a program is, knowing how to push kids the right way and getting the most out of them. And, Coach Fowler's definitely pretty good at that.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a lot of great sports programs at Edgewood. Steve, let's talk a little bit about you now.
Well, we got to go back because we didn't talk baseball and softball.
Okay, baseball.
So we got to talk baseball and softball.
Oh, so my favorite sports, and I forget about it.
Yeah, so our softball team, we're very young. We have 2 seniors this year. Actually, senior night's going to be next week.
Baseball?
This is softball.
Oh, softball.
We have 2 seniors. Joel Laughlin is our head coach.
Conneaut guy.
Brother of Clyde.
Yep.
So Clyde is all the way around. Has been around quite a bit with us. So it's fun. Our girls, same thing. Joel puts in a ton of time. It is the most difficult sport to coach is baseball and softball in the spring because your schedules never are what you say they are. You could be saying we're going to play today and tomorrow there could be snow on the ground, and we had that happen multiple times this spring. So Joel does a great job of balancing the fun part of keeping the girls, entertained with the sport, getting them outside. We can get them outside, and he does a great job. Baseball-wise, we have a new head coach this year. His name's Sean Freeman. You've probably heard of Sean Freeman before.
Name.
Okay, he went to Pymatuming Valley.
Yep.
Went to Kent State. Actually, was drafted by the Tigers. Played in the minor league organization. So he's in the Kent State Baseball Hall of Fame. Outstanding guy. He's been our JV girls basketball coach for the last 3 or 4 years. But just an outstanding man in the first place. I mean, he's got a lot of experience that he can teach the kids what to expect at the college level. And we're excited about what he's doing for the program. I think the kids are getting a lot out of his work.
Was that Sean Freeman, Jared Freeman, the basketball player for the Lakers?
It was his cousin.
Cousin.
Well, nephew.
He was a
nephew.
great basketball player for the Lakers this year as well.
Yes, he was.
Okay, now do we got all the sports in?
I think we've covered everything.
Okay, great sports programs.
Oh, we didn't.
What did we forget now?
See, we got to go by season. I'm a season guy.
I tried to start.
We didn't talk about swimming.
That's kind of new. Yes.
Yeah, and swimming is actually pretty popular at Edgewood, especially on the girls' side. We had a little over 10 to 12 girls, I think, participated in swimming. We had a boys' team as well. Bob Laird was our girls and boys swim coach. Actually had our first ever girls qualify for districts this year. It was a relay team, so we're very proud about that. And actually, one of our senior swimmers, Hannah Laird, is going to go swim at Ursuline as I go to college and swim. So we're very proud of the program. It's really grown. I mean, it's grown tremendously in the last few years. It started off as a club sport, and then we've kind of gotten coaches hired, and now we got numbers enough to sustain a program. So we're excited about that.
Good, very good. Do you believe in cycles? School teams go in cycles?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I think there's cycles of different groups of kids depending upon, who comes through, and if sometimes it's all about elementary programs and youth sports. If you can have, kids that are motivated and parents that, maybe volunteer and kind of coach their kids, you do have some cycles that go through. It all depends upon numbers. That's one of the things that you always talk about is, maybe you have a low junior class but a high senior class, and it's hard to balance those cycles of numbers as they come through. But I do think there are cycles of sport athletes that kind of come through different schools. I think Grand Valley right now is going through an upside cycle in their football program. Their football program's outstanding. And I think, there's just different cycles that everybody goes through. And I hope to be stuck in one for a long time. And I think that's the goal, is to try to get, your youth programs and your high school programs aligned to where you can get people lined up to continue that cycle and don't have the drop-offs.
When you say a long time, you mean something like Nancy Barbell's Geneva Eagles program.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, something like Coach Nancy, no doubt.
What a tremendous coach she was.
Yeah, what an awesome tribute Bartone
Very
did.
good tribute.
Michael Bartone did an awesome tribute to her on that ACBF. I mean, that was outstanding.
Very good tribute. Well, let's talk a little bit about you now, Steve.
Okay.
Of course, you played back in the mid-90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
90s.
I graduated in 97.
Graduated in 97. You were on a very good basketball team, just like your Edgewood is currently. You played a couple years after those great Conneaut teams. Were you playing as a freshman and sophomore against those Conneaut teams?
No, but I was at those games. I remember watching the Mike Papes of the world, and I remember all of those things. And actually, we used to go down when I was an 8th, 9th grader and go down in the summer and play at Conneaut Township Park when Coxon and Pape and Lyons and all those guys were down there. And that was fun for us, just because you got a chance to play against very good competition and guys who were very successful at what they did. So it was fun. We used to have a lot of guys meet down there, and it wasn't just Ashtabula guys. We'd have Conneaut guys meet down there. Pymatuming Valley guys would come. It was a great meeting place. I miss those days a little bit. Mm-hmm. Kind of life gets going real fast. You don't get a chance to kind of take a deep breath and do those things. But yeah, that was a very fun time in my life for sure. Growing up, watching all those guys play, and then trying to follow in some of their footsteps.
talked about John Bowler. Of course, you played for a coach almost similar to John Bowler in Mr. Runyon.
Absolutely.
And what was he like to play for?
Well, I mean, I had almost 20 years of experience playing for him. I mean, when I was, 6 and 7 years old, he was coaching us in the Y Basketball League to Y Soccer to Little League Baseball. I mean, he was just an outstanding role model. There wasn't anything Al wouldn't do for you. Knew how to push you, knew that you were going to be pushed, but in a positive direction to make sure that he was getting the most out of you. And, I said this at the banquet, and that's probably the hardest part of the conversation was talking about him, because a lot of what we did, it was because of him. I mean, he pushed myself. It was nice to have his son as a major part of that too. And Scott and I, were the right hand and left hand. He knew what I was doing every second. And, it takes somebody like that to push those guys in the direction to make sure that can happen. And Al was definitely that man. He's, a big part of my life still. I mean, he's the godfather of my son. We keep in touch on a regular basis. And I thank him for everything, because he's the reason why I'm sitting where I'm sitting right now.
Mm-hmm. So a little bit more than 20 years since you've been on the court yourself, how have you seen the game of basketball change, or hasn't it?
I think it's changed. I think it's I remember back in the day it was a lot more physical back in the when we were playing. And I'm not saying you don't have physical games now.
Mean pounding the ball inside?
Yeah, I think the game was a little bit different. I mean, I definitely wasn't that guy. I mean, I was more of a shooter. But I mean, I definitely would do that. But nowadays it's the guy sitting outside the door that wants to shoot the basketball, and it's more of a finesse game, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think it's a little bit different. But I also think it's about the people that you play too. I mean, when you were playing the Madisons and the Harveys and the Riversides, it was a pound game. And even back in the day when Conneaut's teams were big, they were physical. You knew when you come here, you were going to play a physical basketball game, and that's kind of how it was. And I think it's changed a little bit. I think just styles have changed a little bit, and I think that also cycles. I mean, it just depends on what the head coach is there, what he wants to do, if he wants to press, if he wants to ground and pound. I mean, it just depends on what he wants to do.
Of course, you didn't just play basketball. You played baseball as well?
I did.
And what position did you play there?
I played shortstop and second base.
And how did your teams do, and how did you do?
We did okay. We ended up second place in the league, I think, back-to-back years. Those were the years that Danny Mazingo was a big pitcher for Ashtabula Harbor. And we battled. We had definitely a good time. I think some of my best baseball memories were, playing summer baseball for Ashtabula Rubber Company. We played, I believe it was 74 games my senior summer. We went from basketball camps to baseball tournaments, back to basketball camps to baseball tournaments. We made it to the state tournament in Ashtabula Rubber Company, and being a part of Sonny Hayes and Lou Wisnai and that whole program was outstanding. And I think that was those are my fondest baseball memories, is playing that summer, knowing that every day you were getting up and we were going to play open gym down at Township Park or at Edgewood, and then we were going to play a Legion game that night. And that's kind of how it was, and that's kind of how my life was for 75 days in the summer.
Big Lou, you mentioned a Hall of Fame baseball player for Edgewood. Yeah,
yes,
he was
absolutely.
tremendous.
Yes.
I remember him well. You mentioned earlier that you will be moving to the Chagrin Valley Conference in 2019-20. Lakeside's also going, so is Grand Valley. So you get to play some more of these local. Well, you did play Lakeside anyway, didn't you?
In our current setup, we played Lakeside and Jefferson. We're really our county opponents in our league with the All-American. Lakeside was a tier up, but we always played Lakeside twice. But we're excited about this move. I think it's good for our kids. When we did the research analysis of, the decision making, obviously the big strong point is travel. I mean, we're cutting travel down almost 30 minutes. Where I was traveling in 2019, 2020, we're traveling about an hour. With this current league schedule, with our new league schedule, we're traveling about 32 minutes one way. Totally different. Or get our kids home earlier. I mean, it's a huge benefit.
I think I read somewhere where there's going to be like 22 schools in that conference, one of the largest in Ohio.
Yeah, so I actually haven't been to the kind of orientation meeting yet. It's coming up here, I think, towards the middle of the month. But yeah, the Chagrin Valley is going to be broken into 3 tiers in most sports, but 4 in football. So it'll be a little bit different as far as how we're going to be structured. I know in In our other sports besides football, so boys basketball, for example, will be Lakeside, Harvey, Geneva, us, and Lakeside. Those will be the 5 tier members of that division. Will be called the Lake Division. And from what I've gathered from the members of the CVC is that's how it'll be for other sports besides football. Football will add a couple schools to that. We'll play Chagrin Falls, West Geauga, and Orange. So those aren't close trips, but at the same point, when you're only going there once every other year, that isn't that bad. And I think that was the issue that we were having in the All-American. And, I came right out and told our commissioner at the All-American, I thanked them because we didn't have a home, and they gave us one. And they've treated us very well down there, and this is just a better option for us right now, and that's kind of why we lean towards where we're going.
Steve, let's close with this question, and it's fact or fiction.
Okay.
The Edgewood Warriors are on the Conneaut Spartans football schedule for 2019.
Fact.
Yes. At one time I heard it was a strong rumor, but they couldn't confirm it.
Well, we're throwing some dates around right now because now that I've joined a new league, my league schedule has changed. But we are we did have each other on the schedule sometime in the first 3 weeks is what we're trying to gather with Joel and I. But we have been trying to get that together, and that has been something we had planned before. We just have to get us back. I mean, 50
heard it
years
here first. It's a fact.
That's right. 50 years we played, and we got to get it back.
Yes, we do. Those two teams need to play in just
That's
about
right.
every sport there is.
Yes, and hopefully we are. I mean, that's the other advantage of this CVC for us. Is that
for attendance purposes too.
Well, yeah. I mean, for attendance, but also just. I mean, we got our rivals back. I mean, we can play. We're going to have Lakeside and Geneva in our league. We can play Jefferson, we'll play Grand Valley, we'll play PV, we'll definitely play Conneaut. We got all of our county opponents on every schedule at least once come 2019. And we couldn't do that right now. I couldn't offer that.
Great. Steve, you do a great job.
Thank you very much. I
And
appreciate
again,
it.
congratulations on
Thanks for
being
having me.
elected into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Athletic Director Steve Kray, also Assistant Principal at Braden, my guest today on Around the Town with Chuck.